You think being a perfectionist is a virtue. But what if I told you that it's actually what's keeping you from living in peace? What you call high standards might actually be fear. Fear of making mistakes, of being judged, of not being loved. Perfectionism looks like a virtue, but it's a trap. And in this video, I'm going to show you how it's been sabotaging you and what you can do to break free from it. But let me warn you, it's going to hurt. And that's exactly why you need to watch it until the end. Because maybe for the first time, you'll understand what's really been holding you back. Perfectionism isn't what you think. It's not a noble pursuit of excellence. It's not about wanting to do things well or striving to improve. All of that is part of a healthy growth process. But perfectionism goes further, or rather, it goes beneath. Perfectionism is born out of fear. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of rejection. It's a constant attempt to hide your imperfections so you don't have to deal with the pain of being seen as you truly are. And that's why it doesn't push you forward. It paralyzes you. Perfectionists aren't the ones who do the most. They're the ones who freeze the most because everything needs to be just right. Before they can even start, they delay decisions, redo tasks over and over, obsessively review everything. They live in a constant state of tension because deep down, they're trying to do the impossible, eliminate the possibility of making a mistake. And since that will never happen, perfectionism becomes a cycle of frustration. You try to get it right, but it's never enough. You achieve something, but immediately expect more from yourself. You finish something, but feel like it could have been better. Perfectionism is, in fact, a character. It's the socially acceptable version of yourself that you created to be validated. And it's always whispering to you, if you're not flawless, no one will respect you. No one will love you. No one will want you around. But that character is exhausting. It's constantly demanding. It doesn't let you make mistakes, relax, or try new things. And the more you live to uphold this image of perfection, the further you drift from who you really are. That's why perfectionism isn't a virtue. It's a prison. And the prettier it looks on the outside, the more it suffocates you on the inside. You might think everything's fine, that perfectionism is just a part of your personality. But little by little, it starts affecting areas of your life in ways you might not immediately notice. You feel overwhelmed, even when you're only doing what's necessary. You carry around this constant feeling that there's always more to be done, something that could have been done better, even if no one pointed out any flaws. And that pressure, which might have seemed motivating at first, starts to wear you down. Bit by bit, your mind enters a state of constant tension. You don't relax, don't allow yourself to truly rest because you feel like you haven't earned it. After all, there's still so much to fix, adjust, and even when a task is complete, it still doesn't feel good enough. This keeps you from enjoying life's simple moments. Even when you achieve something, the joy is short-lived because the next goal, the next challenge, the next standard is already looming. Nothing feels enough for long. It's like you're stuck in an endless race with the finish line constantly being pushed further ahead. And this dynamic starts to affect your relationships too, because when you demand so much from yourself, you start expecting the same level of demand from others, and inevitably, people will fall short because they're human. But since you don't allow yourself to make mistakes, you also struggle to deal with the mistakes of others. That's when conflicts arise, relationships strain, and disappointments happen. Disappointments that deep down have more to do with your own difficulty in accepting imperfection than with the other person. What no one tells you is that perfectionism steals your spontaneity. It makes you overthink before acting, traps you in comfort zones disguised as competence, you start avoiding new projects, different ideas, anything that makes you feel out of control. And in doing so, you slowly dim your light, miss opportunities, and disconnect from your creativity and authenticity. In the end, perfectionism doesn't protect you from anything. It only paralyzes you. And the more you try to avoid the pain of making mistakes, the further you drift from the freedom of living with lightness and truth. No child is born a perfectionist. We don't come into the world afraid of making mistakes. Young children fall, get messy, improvise, invent. They are spontaneous, free, curious. They aren't ashamed of not knowing something or of trying again. Perfectionism, in truth, is something we learn, and almost always it shows up as an attempt to protect ourselves. At some point in your story, you realize that making mistakes brought uncomfortable consequences. Maybe it was a disapproving look, a harsh criticism, an awkward silence, or even a comparison with someone who did it better. Slowly, you started to associate imperfection with rejection. That's where the defense mechanism is born. You learn that you need to get it right to be valued, that you need to be the best to be seen, that you can't fail, because failing means disappointing. It means being less, and being less hurts. So, as a way to protect yourself from pain, you create a standard, a character. This character is competent, tireless, responsible, impeccable. They don't make mistakes, don't run late, don't mess up. They aim to please, perform, and deliver. And the better they perform, the more praise they receive, and the harder it becomes to let go of them. But this character is armor, and armor, no matter how beautiful, is heavy. Over time, you get used to living inside it. But living inside armor means giving up feeling freely, showing yourself fully, being vulnerable. It means spending your life trying to prove something to others, and even more so, to yourself. Perfectionism then stops being just a behavior and becomes an identity. You start to believe that's just how you are, that you work better under pressure, that you push yourself because you care. But deep down, what you're really doing is trying to control everything around you so you don't have to deal with the pain that marked you back then. The problem is that pain doesn't go away. It just hides deeper. And as long as you keep trying to avoid it through perfection, you'll remain trapped in the same emotional prison. Because what you really need isn't to always get it right. It's to learn to love yourself even when you're wrong, even when you don't impress, even when you're just you. No character, no filter, no armor. Perfectionism begins inside you, but slowly it starts to spill outward. And it directly affects the way you see people, your relationships, and even the world around you. When you're too hard on yourself, it's almost inevitable that you stop being hard on others too. You expect them to be as demanding as you are with yourself. And when they aren't, frustration creeps in. Judgment follows. You might not even notice it, but you start to develop impatience with others' mistakes, irritation with things done half-heartedly. And what does that lead to? Distance. People pull away because they feel pressured around you. They feel like they have to walk on eggshells, that they can't make mistakes, that any slip-up will be seen as incompetence, and that breaks connection. You might be admired, respected, even envied, but not necessarily loved, because perfectionism creates such a rigid, polished image that it blocks intimacy. People don't connect with your efficiency, they connect with your humanity. And if you hide yours, out of fear of appearing fragile, you also hide your chance of being truly seen. Besides that, perfectionism distorts your empathy. You judge others more harshly for failing because, deep down, you see in them something you don't accept in yourself. It's like every mistake someone else makes holds up a mirror that reminds you of your own imperfections. And since you don't allow yourself to fail, you don't know how to hold space for others when they do. This creates conflict, excessive expectations, and silent rifts. Over time, you start to feel alone even when surrounded by people because you're always performing, always trying to keep up the image, always avoiding showing insecurity, and that keeps you from being vulnerable, which is exactly what creates real connection. Deep down, you want to be understood, but you're only showing the part of you that you think is acceptable. And how can anyone fully understand you if you never allow yourself to be fully present with anyone? Perfectionism puts you on a pedestal, but that pedestal is also isolation. You drift away without realizing it, locking yourself into a survival mode that blocks the very thing you want most, to feel connected, accepted, and loved, even with your imperfections. One of the biggest lies perfectionism tells you is that it gives you control. Control over your image, control over outcomes, control over how others will perceive you, judge you, accept you. But the truth is, perfectionism doesn't give you control over anything. It only gives you more fear, more rigidity, and more frustration. Because no matter how much you try to plan everything, review everything, anticipate every detail, there will always be something beyond your reach. There will always be the unpredictable factor, human error, life unfolding outside the script. And when you live trying to control everything, any small mistake becomes an earthquake. Any unexpected change feels like a threat. Any imperfection becomes an internal collapse. And the most dangerous part is that in this effort to keep everything under control, you start confusing control with safety. You start believing that if you can keep everything flawless, nothing will go wrong. But that's an illusion. And more than that, it's a prison. Because living to control everything is living in fear. You don't act with freedom, you act with caution, calculating, anticipating, rehearsing. You don't trust the flow of life. You try to force the outcome. And what comes out of that is exhaustion, anxiety, the constant feeling that you're fighting the world and yourself. The perfection you're chasing doesn't exist. It's a fantasy your mind created to protect you from pain, from rejection, from failure. But ironically, it's this very pursuit that pulls you away from lightness, creativity, spontaneity, from real life. Because living means, yes, dealing with the uncertain. It means allowing yourself to make mistakes and learn, to fall and get back up. It means admitting that you can't control everything and still moving forward with courage. When you let go of the illusion of perfection, you begin to discover something much more powerful, authenticity. And that's when true freedom begins. When you realize you don't need to have everything under control to live a meaningful life. You just need to be present, whole, and open to real growth. Up to this point, we've talked about the weight of perfectionism, how it starts, how it limits you, how it sabotages your relationships and traps you in an illusion of control. But now comes the most important part, realizing that there is a way out. And it's not about trying to be less demanding, less intense, or simply taking it easier. This path is much deeper. It involves accepting that your imperfection is part of who you are and that it doesn't diminish your worth. It makes you human. You won't break free from perfectionism by pretending to be more laid back. That would just be another attempt to act like something you're not really feeling. What sets you free is starting to acknowledge, honestly, that yes, you're afraid of failing. Yes, you want to be accepted. Yes, you're too hard on yourself. But even so, you deserve rest. You deserve respect. You deserve love. And that only becomes possible when you integrate your flaws as part of your story, not as stains on your value. True emotional maturity is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole. It's looking inward and seeing both your strengths and your contradictions, your mistakes, your wounds, and still not hating yourself for them. On the contrary, it's seeing all of that as the raw material of your power. Because the more deeply you know yourself, the more you can act with awareness, authenticity, and truth. Integrating imperfection means this: stop running from yourself. Stop spending energy maintaining an idealized image and start channeling that energy into truly growing from the inside out. No masks, no characters, no fear of being seen as you really are. And when you begin to do that, something changes. You stop constantly comparing yourself. You stop living for external validation. You stop punishing yourself for not reaching an ideal that was never real. You begin to breathe lighter, to forgive yourself, to allow yourself. And that's where your true strength is born. Not the strength of someone who never fails, but of someone who fails, learns, and keeps going with an open heart. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror, but it's not an ordinary mirror. This mirror doesn't just reflect your appearance. It reveals everything you've tried to hide: your flaws, your insecurities, your mistakes, the parts of you that aren't polished or pretty. At first, you might feel a wave of shame. Maybe you want to look away. Maybe you want to fix something. But what if, just for a moment, you didn't do any of that? What if you simply took a breath and accepted that all of that is also you? What if you understood that you don't need to erase those parts in order to be worthy of respect, love, or value? That's where true freedom begins. When you stop fighting against yourself and start walking alongside who you truly are. No perfection, no excuses, just presence and truth. Now tell me, how many opportunities have you missed trying to be something you didn't need to be? How many moments have you not lived because you were too busy trying not to make mistakes? This video isn't here to convince you to change who you are. It's here to remind you that you don't have to be perfect to be whole. You just need the courage to see yourself with more honesty and less judgment. If this resonated with you, drop a comment below. I choose to be whole, not perfect. It's more than just a phrase. It's a quiet commitment to your freedom. And if you want to keep diving into this kind of truth, the kind that hurts sometimes but always frees, subscribe to the channel. This isn't a place for easy content. It's a space for transformation. Because sometimes the only thing we need to change our lives is to stop running from who we already are.